It began with screams that no one cared to stop. The neighbors had grown used to them, the sharp, pitiful cries of a boy whose only mistake was being born to the wrong mother. People whispered, but no one interfered. They said the boy's stepmother had a heart made of ice and hands that knew no mercy. But what happened that night would make even the coldest soul tremble. Because cruelty, no matter how hidden behind locked doors, always finds its way back home. Ethan was only 10, yet his eyes carried the weariness of someone far older. Since his father remarried, his life had become a daily punishment. His stepmother, Clara, seemed to hate him simply for existing. She fed him scraps, made him sleep in the basement, and accused him of things he never did. Breaking plates, spilling tea, misplacing her jewelry. Every day ended the same, with the sting of her hand or the strike of a belt. His father, David, was a long-distance truck driver, gone for weeks at a time. When he was home, Clara's face softened into a mask of kindness. She'd serve him dinner with a smile, play the role of a loving wife, and talk about how difficult Ethan had become. David believed her. He thought the boy was troubled, maybe angry after losing his mother. He never suspected that the real monster lived under his own roof. One evening, Clara's cruelty reached a new level. She accused Ethan of stealing money from her purse, a lie she invented simply to have an excuse to hurt him. She dragged him by the arm, shouting, "You ungrateful little thief!" and struck him across the face. He didn't cry this time. He had learned that tears only made her angrier. She threw him into the basement and locked the door. Hours passed in silence. The basement was cold, damp, and filled with shadows. Ethan sat curled up in a corner, clutching an old blanket. His cheek throbbed, and his stomach growled. Above him, he could hear the faint sound of Clara laughing on the phone. She was talking to someone, perhaps a friend, or maybe just pretending to have one. But as her laughter echoed through the house, a strange feeling crept through Ethan's chest. It wasn't fear anymore. It was something darker, something that whispered, "She can't hurt you forever." That night, a storm rolled in. Rain beat against the windows, and thunder shook the walls. Clara went to bed late, irritated that the television signal kept cutting out. She didn't check on the boy. She never did. But around midnight, she woke to a sound, faint, rhythmic knocks coming from downstairs. At first, she thought it was the storm, but the sound grew louder, sharper, deliberate. Knock, knock, knock. Clara sat up, heart racing. "Ethan?" she called out angrily. "If that's you, stop it right now." No answer. She slipped out of bed, grabbing her robe. The house felt colder than usual. When she stepped into the hallway, she noticed something strange. The basement door was slightly open. She was sure she had locked it earlier. Annoyed, she marched toward it, muttering to herself, "That boy's going to get it this time." But when she reached the basement, a gust of cold air swept past her, and the light above flickered. She peered down the stairs. "Ethan!" she shouted again. "Don't play games with me." Silence. She turned on the light switch, but the bulb only blinked weakly before burning out completely. With a frustrated sigh, she grabbed a flashlight from the kitchen and went down the steps. The basement looked the same, damp, cluttered, miserable. The blanket lay crumpled on the floor, but the boy was gone. Clara's pulse quickened. "Where did you go, you little brat?" she hissed, scanning the room. The door hadn't been broken. The small window was still locked from the inside. It didn't make sense. She turned to leave, but then she froze. There on the wall, smeared in something dark, were the words, "You said I stole from you." Her breath caught in her throat. She shone the flashlight closer. The words looked like they'd been written with mud, or something thicker. She stepped back, her mind racing. "This is ridiculous," she muttered. "He's trying to scare me." But as she turned toward the stairs, she heard it again. That knocking. Not from above this time. From behind her, she spun around, the beam of the flashlight trembling. "Ethan?" No answer. She climbed the stairs quickly, her feet barely touching each step. When she reached the top, she slammed the basement door shut and locked it. Her heart pounded. She went back to bed, trying to convince herself that it was just her imagination. But sleep never came. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard the knocking again, softer now, but closer, as if someone were tapping right behind her pillow. When morning came, Clara was pale and restless. She searched the entire house for Ethan, but he was nowhere to be found. The front door was still bolted, the windows locked. There was no sign of forced entry or escape. She told the neighbors he'd run away. No one questioned her. They all assumed Ethan finally had enough. But deep down, Clara knew that wasn't true. Days passed. The house grew heavier with silence. Clara tried to distract herself, but the guilt gnawed at her. Or maybe it wasn't guilt. Maybe it was fear. Because each night, she began to hear things again. Soft footsteps, the creak of doors, whispering in the dark. One night, she woke to find her bedroom window open, rain splattering onto the floor. She got up to close it, and there, in the reflection of the glass, she saw him. Ethan, standing behind her. She gasped and turned around, but the room was empty. The blanket she'd thrown away days ago was now neatly folded at the foot of her bed. Her hands trembled. "This isn't real," she whispered. "You're gone. You're not here." But the knocks came again, this time from the hallway. 3 sharp, slow knocks. Then a voice, faint childlike, whispered, "You said I stole from you." Clara screamed and ran toward the door, but it slammed shut before she could reach it. The lights flickered violently. She felt a sudden coldness wrap around her throat, like small hands gripping her neck. She clawed at the air, gasping, "Stop. I'm sorry." The lights went out. When the police arrived the next morning, called by a neighbor who heard the screams, they found Clara lying on the floor, her face pale and her eyes wide open in terror. There were no signs of struggle, no injuries, no intruder. But her fingernails were bloodied, as if she'd been clawing at her own skin. David returned home 2 days later, devastated. The police told him his wife had died of cardiac arrest. They also said they'd found something strange, a small set of muddy footprints leading from the basement to the bedroom. They assumed they were old. When David went down to the basement, he found Ethan's blanket and a small note tucked beneath it. It read, "I didn't steal anything, Dad." They searched for Ethan for weeks, but he was never found. Some said he'd run away. Others whispered that his spirit still lingered in that house, waiting. The neighbors moved away one by one, unable to bear the eerie quiet that hung over the place. Years later, the house stood abandoned. Yet those who passed by claimed they could still hear the faint sound of knocking, slow, rhythmic, coming from deep within the basement. And sometimes, on stormy nights, a child's voice would echo through the darkness, soft but clear. "You said I stole from you." Because cruelty, no matter how it hides, always demands a price. And that night, Clara paid hers in full.